Welcome back. Sorry about any delays. I said it'd be the weekend and now it's Tuesday. But that £4 microphone that I had just didn't work anymore, which shocker, it's £4. Anyway, won't waste much time, so let's just get into the video. People have been banging on about disability for centuries, whether it be actually disabled people trying to define it and get it recognised, or other end of the spectrum, ableists trying to pretend it doesn't exist. At one point in history, disability was only recognised in the most extreme cases, for example, a person being wheelchair bound or suffering with a pretty severe intellectual disability. Now, disability is recognised in many more circumstances, with many of them being invisible. Whilst this increased understanding is, on the whole, a good thing, it's also allowed some people to more easily fake disabilities or use them as excuses for their own failure. You may have seen the video on Munchausen's that I put out a while ago, but it isn't necessarily important when it comes to watching this video. Munchausen's, or factitious disorder, whatever you want to call it, is often pretty extreme and involves the individual causing themselves some form of harm as a result of fabricating serious illnesses. The people I'm going to be talking about in this video likely don't have Munchausen's, as they are likely lying about their illnesses for far different reasons, and unlike a munchie, some of them might not even be aware of the fact that they're actually faking. It's well known that being severely overweight is linked to an increased risk of developing multiple diseases or complications. Fat activists and Haze affiliates often like to claim that obesity cannot cause illness because, you'll never believe this, thin people get illnesses too. But this is a logical fallacy. What you can see now on the screen is a bell curve, or as you call it in maths, normal distribution. The area under the graph represents how many data points, or let's say people, fall into each quartile, and as you can see here, the middle two quartiles near the average or mean contain the most people, which is what you'd expect. This distribution often represents many different metrics or human qualities, such as height or IQ. As you can see here, even the very tail ends of this graph have got space under them, meaning that people fall into these areas. Just far fewer of them. This represents human variation, meaning that humans can and often do stray from averages or correlations because we're not all inbred, but it doesn't mean that the correlation doesn't exist. One such complication of obesity is joint pain, which may be caused by osteoarthritis. Although this graph is not a normal distribution graph, we can use the same principles, as we can see that the rate of osteoarthritis rises dramatically as BMI increases. Healthy people can develop osteoarthritis too, but they're far less likely to. Excess body weight puts a lot of extra strain upon the joints, causing soft tissues such as cartilage to become damaged or even worn away, which leads to pain, obviously, if your bones are scraping against each other. The legendary Dr. Now from My £600 Life himself has stated that practically all of his bariatric patients have suffered from cartilage damage or loss. I'm pretty sure that he mentioned this in the Robin and Garrett episode, but I don't have the time to sit and watch the whole show right now, so unfortunately I can't say for certain. The point here is thin people can develop joint issues, but they don't develop joint damage at the same rate as obese people, basically. Plus, the fat activists' poor understanding of BMI is evident here too. They may try to reason that the graph shows little difference in risk between BMIs 24 and 28, getting really offended that the BMI of 28 is labelled as potentially unhealthy, whereas the BMI of 24 isn't. When BMI is discussed by medical professionals, bariatric medical professionals, small differences in BMI are not used to determine overall health. The BMI scale does not end at 30 or even 40, and in some very extreme cases it can skyrocket into the 100s. Fat activists don't like that the BMI scale has risk categories, acting as if they're taken as bulletproof boundaries instead of guidelines or averages like, everything else in medicine. BMI is not debunked by a person with a BMI of 30 being in overall good health, but you will be hard pushed to find someone with a BMI over 40 or 50 in good health. With all the background information set up, it's time to get into the real meat of this video. I will say that I do love all things pathology, and I'll freely admit that biology was the only A level I cared about enough to actually study for, which I think saying that out loud is really going to benefit my employment prospects. But, obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not providing diagnostic advice for anything. I'm kind of just disappointed in the fact I even have to say that, but here we are. What I will be doing is using statistics and observing patterns of behaviour to come to a rational and evidence based conclusion. Now, you may be wondering what we're all here to talk about, though I'm sure you've already guessed. Well, fat activists and their fake disabilities. As with my last video on the topic, we can start a little bit more general with this, so here's a post from Fat Logic in which an obese person claims that their joint pain has nothing to do with their weight. First of all, multiple dislocations in your knees. That's very unlikely unless this person is engaging in a lot of very intense activities such as contact sports or lifting very heavy loads, or has a genetic disorder that weakens their connective tissues. Second of all, neither of those factors would change the fact that weight has an impact too. Every pound of weight that you gain can put 4 to 6 pounds of pressure upon your knees. So if your joints are unstable due to a genetic disorder, the last thing you want to do is put them under even more strain. If you have brittle bones, you're told not to partake in any activities that could increase the risk of a fracture, because the repetitive strain will damage your bones. Apply this logic here. If your joints are already fragile and unstable due to a non obesity related cause, they'll sustain damage as a result of pressure that may not affect somebody without the genetic component. However, the fact that the strain caused by obesity isn't the only factor doesn't mean it's not a factor at all. Fat activists, body positive influencers, and more generally addicts will often explain away the consequences of their destructive addictions and behaviours by claiming to have illnesses that cause the same symptoms. Oh, Christ, what a bore. This video is getting a bit too sciencey, I think. We should inject a bit of energy into it. Oh wow, if it isn't Anna O'Brien. Anna, as you all know by now, is a food addict who lives in a permanent state of denial, dissociates herself from the body she electively destroyed, and feels entitled to magical weight loss solutions that she doesn't try to achieve. As part of this denial, she will claim that all of her obesity related health issues are actually not obesity related, and that she is instead chronically ill, acting as if she's a helpless victim of her out of control body. I can't say I'm that much of an Anna historian in the same way that I'm practically an Anne Boleyn theologian, so I'll mainly be focusing on two of her disabilities that are quite obviously doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Pun fully intended, by the way. By that, I mean they seemingly shoulder the blame for almost every negative aspect of Anna's life, because even though I've already said it before, Anna doesn't think that her body is her fault, and she doesn't believe she has any control over it. I won't be talking about Anna's lipedema in this video because I discussed it last time and she's not faking that. She's very obviously got lipedema, so it's not really relevant to this video, even though she blames all of her weight on it. Aside from lipedema, Anna has mentioned various ailments. In this post, she claims to have Hashimoto's disease, which is a good place to start since I actually have this too, so I know a fair bit about it. Also, as a side note, she says she's on weight management medication in this post, but she isn't anymore. Just throwing that out there. In one of her many health related meltdown videos, she goes into specifics about this, but since she publishes one of these every other week, and her Reddit page isn't quite as dense with history as Anne Boleyn's or Chantel's, it's quite difficult for me to narrow it down, so that's why there's not a video here. Hashimoto's disease, for those who don't know, is an autoimmune disease that attacks your thyroid, causing TSH to rise and T3 and T4, or your thyroxine hormones, to decrease, which leads to a slow metabolism, to put this very simply. This is called hyperthyroidism, and it can have varying effects upon your body, depending on how severe the disease is. Anna actually discovered her Hashimoto's in the same way that I did, as it was picked up in a routine blood test after not getting any done for a really bloody long time. I can't find any of her TSH, T3, T4, or TPO values, so I can't say exactly how severe it was for her, but in this context, it doesn't make the slightest bit of difference. Slowed metabolism can lead to weight gain, and this actually did happen to me over the course of a year, as I gained around £30, and it can make it harder to lose weight. However, unless your thyroid is practically disintegrated from damage, you're likely not going to be approximately 350 to £400 overweight like Anna. By that point, you would likely be dead, or at least be completely incapacitated with other symptoms such as fatigue. You'd probably suffer from alopecia and extremely dry skin. You'd age prematurely, you'd be infertile, and your risk of developing cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, and randomly going into adrenal crisis and dying would rise quite significantly. Anna rarely mentions her Hashimoto's, but when she does, the tone she takes may imply that she blames it at least partly for her morbid obesity. She almost seems pleased to have it. Anna's numerous food videos and non compliance with semaglutide show that she is not exactly trying very hard to lose weight, and no hyperthyroid weight gain could possibly explain any of that away. Since I've struggled to find too much footage of Anna discussing this, I'll say that most of this segment might just be conjecture on my part, but I'm not basing it off nothing. I've personally struggled with my weight on and off since childhood. My weight gain was caused by poor eating habits and not just Hashimoto's. I'm currently on a weight loss journey myself and have managed to lose £10 so far, so not too bad, but it turns out not many others with Hashimoto's take the same initiative when it comes to managing their disease. Every time I visit a Hashimoto centered forum or community to find weight management advice, I'm inundated with pseudoscientific guff about starvation mode, called a fat phobic bigot who doesn't understand science, and I'm ultimately told to get used to living in a fluffy body because weight loss is impossible with Hashimoto's. I will admit that I found it much easier to lose weight before my Hashimoto's developed, even though my BMI was lower, but I'm still managing it now. With proper medical management and actually committing to a calorie controlled diet, it is more than possible. I bring this up in regards to Anna because the attitudes are so reminiscent of hers. She's not fat, it's just lipedema, and she can't do anything about that. She participated in free, well, obviously, it's Anna, she doesn't like paying for stuff, genetic testing from the Rare Obesity Gene Panel, looking for genetic explanations to blame for her obesity. And of course, she's constantly making long winded meltdown videos where she cries about her flesh prison, as if she had nothing to do with her body in the state that it is. It's therefore a logical step to say that Anna likely uses her alleged Hashimoto's disease to relinquish responsibility, at least in her own mind, as many food addicts in denial do. I say allegedly here because if she hypothetically lied about it, it wouldn't be the only time that she has lied about having a disease. These may seem like very strong words, but I really do believe that Anna has lied about having Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's not just me who thinks it. In order for me to explain why I and many others believe she is not being truthful, we must first gain some understanding of what EDS is and how it affects your body, as well as how it has become the default genetic disorder when it comes to online illness faking. EDS is a group of genetic disorders that affects the structural stability and production of collagen, one of the most important fibrous proteins within the body. There are 13 different subtypes, but the one Anna seems to be angling for is hypermobile EDS, the most commonly faked one, which is conveniently the only subtype without a known genetic marker, and is less likely than others to cause aortic dissection, which Anna is already at risk for due to her size. She claims this in one of her many tear-filled and quite frankly fucking boring liposuction videos, with her doctor claiming that Anna starves herself and still gains weight. She's clearly choosing a doctor who will just tell her what she wants to hear in exchange for social media exposure, but that's a topic for another day. Her proof of EDS is dubious to say the least, citing that she had reduced mobility and joint damage in her knees. What a shocker! I'm sure that you all remember that segment from a few minutes ago on joint pain, especially osteoarthritis and its correlation to morbid obesity, right? Well, Anna doesn't. She also likes to fart about in the gym, as we saw in my last video on her, running and jumping about in such a way that she would put her joints under considerable strain. Hold on, that sounds just like that Fat Logic post I referenced earlier. If Anna did have EDS and was so serious that it brought her to tears whenever she discussed it, I seriously doubt that she'd have done any of that stuff. People with EDS also tend to experience chronic issues that aren't just centered around obesity related joint pain or obesity related digestive issues. Rosanna doesn't seem to, despite the fact she's over 40 and has abused her body for her entire adult life. When it comes to her EDS, I've come up with two possible theories. The first theory is that she's knowingly faking the illness for sympathy and attention after the bagel incident and trying to convince us all that she deserves free surgery since she's done everything she could to manage her weight. Sorry, plot twist here. You might not have seen this one coming, but she didn't. She may be continuing with the trend of pretending that her body literally losing functionality by the day has nothing to do with the choices she's made, and therefore she gets to keep living in her fantasy land. She also claims to have a leaky gut, which has been linked to both EDS and difficulty when it comes to losing weight. So, as is the pattern with Anna, she may be doing some gold medal winning mental gymnastics in order to blame her obesity on her body and farming some well needed post controversy sympathy. My second theory is that she genuinely believes she has the disorder, and that, like so many other late stage addicts, her capacity for rational thinking has been brought beyond recognition with delusion. I will say that despite her many horrible character traits, I can still recognise the human nestled very deeply within Anna O'Brien. She not only grew up in the ideologically misogynistic LDS or Mormon church, which encourages girls to be trained as housewives from age 12 or younger, but lost both her mother and sister to obesity related disease. It's possible that she inherited an addictive personality from her mother, or at least developed a very unhealthy relationship with food because of this. However, despite the fact I do feel some empathy for her, I strongly believe that she may be terminally addicted to food, as she shows no sign of ever stopping, and this is fully her fault. She may genuinely believe that her obesity isn't a problem, that she must have a whole bunch of rare disorders instead. It really does make me wonder who and what she sees when she looks in the mirror. Does she see the real Anna that the rest of us see? Does she see a slightly curvy but overall healthy woman? We can never know. Her constant claims of illness may be akin to a terminal alcoholic claiming that their drinking's not a problem, and that their liver is only blackening and rotting within them as a result of genetics, and liver cirrhosis is just a drunk phobic conspiracy. She is also allegedly an alcoholic, but since nothing has been proven, I'm not going to speculate on that. But either way, she's still an addict. Faking illness is the irrational, dopamine seeking part of her brain, clutching at any straws it can find in order to maintain the denial and narcissism that is often required for all encompassing and terminal addiction. I don't like her as a person, if that's not come across. But that aside, I sincerely hope she finds and most importantly complies with psychiatric help, because otherwise I don't think she'll ever beat her addiction to consumption, whether that be food or awful kitschy clothes, and it will instead consume her. Well, thanks for watching that video. I will apologise for that awful sort of Ben Shapiro tone to my voice, that sort of annoying nasal vocal fry. I don't even know where that's come from. It's pissing me off just listening to it, but I can't do much about it. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that and let me know what you think about it, I guess. And if you've got any suggestions for more, then let me know, because I'm actually quite enjoying making these videos. And also, just finally, thanks for all the support that the last fat activism Anna related video got, because this my best performing video and you all seem to enjoy it. So again, thanks for the support there. Anyway, I'll see you sometime around next week. Goodbye.